My name is Brianna Golke-Clausen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Grand Rapids Bar Association. The Bar Association is an organization made up of judges, lawyers, and support staff in our West Michigan community who are passionate about things like the Constitution and educating our community around topics related to justice and the law. Normally, we come to you, visit you in your classroom, and talk about the Constitution today. Unfortunately, we can't be in person this year, but we made this video so that we can still talk about the things that we love. We hope that you enjoy the video, and we look forward to seeing you in person next year.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Nicole Reed Williams. I know it's a mouthful, and I am a lawyer at Miller Johnson. And today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Constitution and provisions of the Constitution that I think are very important. The first one is the 19th Amendment. And what the 19th Amendment did was it gave women the right to vote. I think, as we look around us today, it's difficult to imagine that an entire segment of our population did not have the right to vote merely because of our gender. And if only men can do that by having the right to impact who's in power, what kinds of laws we have, then we lose an important perspective. So the passage of the women's right to vote with the 19th Amendment, incredibly important. However, what that didn't mean and what that didn't do was give Black people the right to vote. There were all kinds of ways that the powers that be at the time enacted poll taxes and literacy tests. It wasn't until the 26th Amendment where everybody who was a U.S. citizen had the right to vote. Now, what I suspect, because I remember being in elementary school, even though it was a very long time ago, what I suspect you're thinking is, okay, so what does that really have to do with me? The reason the right to vote is so important is not just for presidential elections, but what's really important about the right to vote is the ability to impact where you live, to impact the elected officials that are in Grand Rapids. So although you as elementary school kids can't vote yet, I want you to go home after this, and I want you to talk to your parents, and I want you to talk to your grandparents and your cousins and your friends who are 18 years of age, and you ask them, are you a registered voter? Because your right to vote can have an incredible impact on our community at home, who our mayor is, who our chief of police is, who our prosecutors are, who our judges are, and all of those are people who impact how we live, work, and play in Grand Rapids. So go home, ask your friends and your family if they're registered to vote, and if not, tell them you can do it through michigan.gov and register to vote along with where you get your license.
Hello, I'm John Rolls, and I'm an attorney who works in downtown Grand Rapids. I work just opposite the DeVos Place, near the courts. And my job as an attorney is to help those people who need to go to court and to help them resolve arguments, settle things, if they would like to do that. Now, why do we have our Constitution? Well, the Constitution itself helps explain that. It says, "We the people of the United States." That means everybody. You, me, your friends, your neighbors, your parents, everybody that you see in class, everybody around. In order to form a more perfect union, again, that's all together, working together, living together in this country, and to establish justice, peace, and make sure that we promote the general good of everyone, not just one or two, but everybody who is in the country. And that's really what the Constitution is about. Now, to support our Constitution, it's not just a matter of understanding our rights, it's also a matter of understanding our responsibilities under the Constitution. Now, we all know our rights. I'm sure we all heard about them, we talk about them. We've got a right to vote, we've got a right to free speech and to worship, but we also have responsibilities under the Constitution, and those responsibilities include obeying the law, being respectful of other people's rights, their property, and their own beliefs. working together so that we learn what's going on in our communities and making sure that we go out and vote knowing why we're voting a particular way. If we all work together and learn those things and pay attention to what's going on in our country and our neighborhood, we can help support the Constitution by knowing not just our rights, but also our responsibilities under the Constitution. So if we all get together, if we all work together, you, your parents, your friends, your family, every one of your classmates, and everyone in the country, we will be able to establish a more perfect union, understanding our rights and responsibilities under it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and happy Constitution Day. My name is Nick Ayub, and I'm one of the judges here at the 61st District Court in downtown Grand Rapids. It's an honor to have a few minutes with you today to discuss one of my favorite subjects, the Constitution of the United States of America. It's extra special because it wasn't all that long ago that I was a fifth grader and a lawyer came to my classroom to talk about the Constitution. And that was a big inspiration to me and ultimately inspired me to go and study law, to become a lawyer, and ultimately to become a judge. So it's an honor to have the chance to come back and to talk to you about this most important subject. I want to specifically talk to you today about what I think is the most important part of our Constitution, the separation of governmental powers into three branches of government. Now, we have to start with a little bit of history. On July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress declared independence from Britain, which at the time was governed by King George III. Now, King George, like most of the monarchs in Europe at the time, exercised complete control over his royal subjects. He could make the law, decide when and when not to enforce the law, and arbitrarily determine what the law meant. And he could do all of this regardless of whether his royal subjects liked it or not. The Americans thought this wasn't a great system of government. Instead, they believed that every person, king, pauper, rich or poor, was born with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that government's role was to protect those rights. After the Americans won the war for independence, delegates met to create a system of government with the main purpose of protecting liberty and avoiding rule by a tyrannical king or a small group of a ruling class. They determined that the most important piece of the new government was the separation of powers, so that no one person or one group could perform all of the functions of government. They identified three separate pillars or branches of government. The first, the legislative branch, which is the branch that makes the law. It is made up of the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. The second, the executive branch, which is headed by the President of the United States and all of the executive agencies that are overseen by the President. This is the branch that executes or enforces the law. Finally, the judiciary, which is addressed in Article 3 of the Constitution. That's the branch of government that I belong to. The judiciary is made up of the Supreme Court and all of the lower courts. Courts determine what the law means, and they ensure that the other branches of government don't act in a way that violates the Constitution. The founders were so convinced that the separation of powers and the checks and balances would be so effective at protecting liberty and the rights of the people that many of them thought a Bill of Rights was unnecessary. That's why the Bill of Rights didn't come at the time that the initial Constitution was proposed. I believe that the separation of powers remains the greatest protection of individual liberty, and that it is vital for each branch of government to keep the other two in check, to ensure that each one only exercises the power that the Constitution and ultimately the people give to it. One question you might have. I said earlier that our founders believed that everyone was born with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is true, and this principle is enshrined in our Constitution, even though we know that many of the framers of the Constitution and leaders of our country have not always lived up to these ideals. For instance, consider the continued institution of slavery, which existed long after the Constitution was finalized. I often struggle with this question, but I come back to the conclusion that the ideals and the system are good and pure, even where we have not always done the best job to live up to these ideals. The good news is that you, as the next generation, have the opportunity to make the country more perfectly fulfill its pledge to justice and liberty for all. If you have interest in the Constitution or the legal system, let your teachers know. And I want to personally invite you all to come and visit us at the district court to see firsthand how the courts and our legal system work. Study hard, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.